So I want to get into your background a little bit, Andrea, with the kind of high profile project that you did in the Pax River area, the Women in Aviation project. Were there differences in how you planned that out versus the type of work that you're doing now for Avian?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say big picture, no. It still has the same, who are we affecting
Right.
and how but in the details, absolutely. And this one was one of my favorite projects that I've ever done. It was so inspiring to get to work on. But the way that we approached that was the museum wanted to do a exhibit on women in aviation. And they have a designer who, by the way, is also on the Avian team that designed the exhibit in the museum. Extremely talented. And so I knew her, I brought her in. We worked kind of in collaboration with what they wanted to put up in the museum and then how the video was going to feed into that, both in social media and what they wanted to do, on the web as they're expanding the museum outside of the borders, and also what would be viewing inside of the exhibit. And it was really just about documenting the incredible stories of these women that just broke through barriers and led the way for so many others. So it was really about but again, finding out what they wanted and then telling that story. And it was an easy story to tell because those women are incredible.
Yeah. So let's, I guess, move on from there to scripting. What goes into that process?
So, I mean, it's going to be different again if it's something that we're using talent for, like actors that we're hiring actors for, or if it's something like with the museum piece or a lot of the virtual tours and stuff where we're basically interviewing the client. So a certain amount of scripting goes into it either way. Obviously, there's a script that actors will follow with what we're doing now, but if it's more of a documentary style, then we go in with bullet points to a degree, certain sound bites that we'd like to get, and then we just interview. And that story really does change as we talk to the people on camera. So I go in with an idea, but it's going to change when I talk to the people because they always bring so much more than I could hope for.
Yeah,
it's about listening.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like what we're doing right now, where we're guiding the conversation with these bullet points that we have, but it might go a different direction, depending on what we talk about in the conversation.
And I'm in the process right now of doing a documentary about the history of Patuxent River Naval Air Station. So it's basically the history of Navy test and development and like the first astronauts and the amazing story of this place. And we've got over 100 hours of footage for that one. So it's a completely different animal altogether, where we're then kind of crafting the story that has to go down to 30 minutes out of 100 hours. So it really is about crafting what you get. But that's the same that applies even if we're doing a 3-minute video. It's really listening and then telling the story that the client wants told.
Morgan, do you want to talk about just, I guess, the avian approach to storytelling? Is there anything specific that we do?
Andrea was saying that whether it's a 100-hour project or a 3-minute project, that the overall approach is still the same. It's like having the same basic recipe, but every now and then you swap out an ingredient or you change a small step.
With what Morgan said, I think that another thing that really makes Avian unique is the way that we really do take time with the clients and the people that we're interviewing, because it takes time to get comfortable with a camera staring at you. You want to be in an environment that you really feel taken care of and supported. And the Avian team is amazing at putting people at ease and being able to really get you as the client to tell your story, even when there's a camera staring at you, which can be a challenge for everybody.
Morgan, do you want to talk about so we have, obviously, the big upfront thing is the videos that we're creating, but we also have this really in-depth knowledge of strategic communications, and we have so many experts that do just specifically strategic communications. How are we crossing the two together to make the best quality product that we can for our customers?
I would say that that's definitely one of the things that sets Avian apart. The fact that most of our products are, influenced by either a strategic communications person that is supporting that project, or there's someone on the team, a producer or a scriptwriter who has a strong background in strategic communication, who really understands how to create a central message and then center the entire project around that. And, from scripting to interviewing to overseeing the visuals, really making sure that that message is carried throughout the piece and supported then by the visuals.
I agree completely. And I think one of the things that makes Avian unique is that, you know, the team does have an experience specifically inside of government and military and aviation communications. You know, I have a long background just working on public affairs for naval aviation. And inside of that, working with a lot of different technologies and knowing who the government clients are talking to and who they have to make a difference for and how to speak to those audiences. And I'm not alone on the team in that skill set. And I think that that's extremely unique for Avian.
Yeah.
And I think that background makes us really sensitive to all of the details that are specific to any organization. So working with the military, there are very specific protocols or very specific uniform, visuals that we need to make sure we're portraying, or very specific things about an aircraft that we need to make sure that we represent accurately. And we can apply that same level of detail and care to any customer. For New Mexico Tech, that's making sure that all of our law enforcement scripting is exactly accurate. We're portraying these officers as they would be approaching a situation, or we're making sure that if we're making a UAS related product, that we have the exact right models that are included, or the exact right components of any scenario. So that level of detail, while many of us have learned it in working with the government, that strong attention to detail is applicable to any of our customers.
Agreed. Yeah, we understand the kind of needs that clients face. So even though I haven't worked directly with law enforcement in this way before, I understand, you know, the needs and the outcomes that they have to have. I was going to say something else. I forgot what it was, though.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a point again that we bring up in a few other episodes where, and you've even already brought it up in this episode, where we have, like, we're not just a video company. We have so many other people that work for us, and we have engineers and product acquisition people and all, like, I can't even think of them because there's too many and it's overwhelming my brain. But there's so many different subject matter experts that we have at Avian that you guys, your team can just go to and be like, hey, is this right? Does this make sense to an engineer? Is this how you would say that to another engineer, or whatever the case is? We talked about it in the first episode with like Top Gun, and how a lot of the Navy, a lot of the people that aren't in the Navy or don't have a Navy mindset don't realize that some of the awards on the officer's chests were not the right ones. But if you talk to a Navy guy, he's like, oh yeah, everything was wrong. Like, you could point out every scene where there was something that wasn't accurate. And it's just really important for the quality of the product that all of those pieces are accurate. And I think you guys were saying exactly that.
It's a theme.
All right. So storyboarding. Oh, well, do you guys have another thought on that?
I was going to say, that I had the privilege of working with Avian about, was it 5 years ago? 6 years ago? I don't know. Time goes so fast now.
It was 5 or 6 years ago, but I think that it was.
Yeah. Yeah. So a while ago. With Avian on the client side. So when I was still working with the government, we had a video that we were doing, and I just loved the experience of working with Avian on the client side. I loved that we came in kind of knowing what we wanted, but with a bunch of different kind of stakeholders that had different ideas. And we walked into Avian and it felt like somebody took the weight off of us. Like, it felt like we could kind of relax. It was like, okay, we had a couple of great startup meetings, and they really got behind like all the different voices. And then they had a script for us, and then we were able to look at the script. So it was a way that they could take all of their different voices and put them into a nice little box where we could then like react to something that seemed much more sane than what we were trying to deal with on our end, and give notes from there. And it just went so smoothly. So I have to say, having been on that side, that's what the experience was like for me, is just kind of having a weight taken off by people that I trusted.
Yeah.
And for that project specifically, it was an overview video for a very large organization. So working directly with us, you were in charge of collecting information and input from so many people. And you had just this large treasure trove of footage and images over the years that we were able to work with you and sift through and prioritize what was the most important things to include. Because, you know, to make a compelling piece, it's got to be tight, it's got to be concise. But you had so many people to juggle between that I thought that was a really nice partnership.
Absolutely. And it was great having somebody that knew the industry enough to be able to hear those voices in the way that they were intended and to streamline it.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching the first part of this episode. If you want to learn more about our video production team and specifically the virtual tours that they've produced, you can go to avian.com/virtual tours. That's avian.com/virtual tours. You can learn about all of the services that they provide and see some of the videos that they've produced in the past as well. Thank you again for listening to this podcast. Tune in next week for the next part of this episode.